Again, for those that have been dedicated in being at as many of these Zoom sessions as possible, it has been such a treat, and it is an even better treat to see some familiar faces along the group of all of you callers. I'm Tammy Wellbrock. I am the Interim Executive Director for the Alumni Association, and I get to be the wizard behind the curtain today with all the Zoom. Our Assistant Director, Charlene Nichols, is going to take over the microphone and introduce our special guest today, Aaron Bernasconi. So enjoy. We've got a fun time ahead.
Thank you, Tammy. It is my pleasure to welcome Aaron Bernasconi to our sessions here with our Alumni Award recipients for 2020. But before we get to that, I just want to give you some ground rules. Please leave your microphones on mute during this session so that we don't have any background noise that we're competing with. This is also going on Facebook Live and being recorded, so just be mindful of that as you are tuning in and watching. And lastly, if you have questions, we invite you to chat them to us throughout this, and then when we get to, we're gonna ask some questions, and then we'll have the opportunity for you all to ask some of those questions via chat. So with all of that said, welcome everyone, and particularly I want to welcome our Young Alumni Award recipient for 2020, Mr. Aaron Bernasconi. He is the, I have to read this because it's such a long title, Senior Advisor to the Deputy U.S. Trade Representative, C.J.Mahoney.
Yeah, well, thank you, Charlene. Yeah, thanks, Charlene. It's a pleasure to be here. And I'm
well,
very
learn a little bit more about you and about what you do and what has brought you to this award recognition. But I want to start with, I know you are someone who grew up in Hays, but can you tell us a little bit about your Fort Hays story? You know, what brought you to Fort Hays State, what your experiences were here, any favorite professors, meaningful experiences, those kinds of things.
Yeah, of course. Well, I'm born and bred in Hays, and I went to Hays High. And so, I mean, it's kind of just the logical next step after you graduate from Hays High to look at Fort Hays. And also, I mean, both of my parents are graduates from Fort Hays State University and spoke very highly of it. So as opposed to looking out of state, that's where I set my eyes. And however, the job I'm doing now and the degree I have is not what I originally sought when I went to Fort Hays. So I originally went for computer science, and I did that semi-unsuccessfully for a few years, and then ended up changing my major again to information networking and telecommunications, once again unsuccessfully. And then, you know, there's these little things called prerequisites that Fort Hays requires you to take that I wasn't super thrilled about, but actually ended up having a huge impact on the course of my life. And so one of those was American government, taught by Dr. Chapman Rackaway, who became one of my favorite professors at Fort Hays, and he's a fantastic teacher. But through the course of taking that prerequisite, it completely changed my outlook on what I wanted to do. So not only did I really enjoy the curriculum, but Dr. Rackaway, just the way he engaged the students, the way he challenged how we thought, and just encouraged us to think outside the box and really kind of challenge what we know, was just really inspiring. And it's because of that prerequisite that I didn't really want to take, but had to take, kind of changed and set the course of everything in motion that is that I'm doing today. And so I'm deeply appreciative to him and to Fort Hays for you know, making us step outside of our comfort zone, because you never know where it could eventually lead to. So that was a huge part of it, which led to me changing my major. And with that as well, one of my other favorite professors was Dr. Shayla Mills, who was the department head at the time and who eventually became my advisor. She was absolutely fantastic. I had her for multiple classes, but I think my favorite one was political philosophy, where, you know, she just really taught me that it was okay to challenge political beliefs, that it was okay to challenge things that you thought you knew, but weren't, but like you didn't really know why you knew them. She taught me to challenge beliefs and philosophy and politics, and she was just deeply engaging and a fantastic professor. So I'm deeply appreciative to both Dr. Rackaway and Dr. Mills.
Very nice. So clearly you have this cool, amazing job in DC currently, but that's not where you started.
That's right. That's right. So
can you tell us the journey that got you to DC?
Yeah, of course, of course. So after I graduated from Fort Hays, a huge part of my Fort Hays State experience was Greek life, and I'm a member of the Sigma Alpha Epsilon fraternity, and which is a whole other thing by itself. But it's a fantastic group of guys, and I have built friendships that have lasted a lifetime, and have kind of led me to most jobs I've ever had. But immediately after graduation, one of my fraternity brothers reached out to me and got me a job in Nashville, Tennessee, in the construction industry with a company called Tektronic Industries North America that sells and does power tools. And I kind of up and left Hays and went to Nashville and was fairly successful in doing that. And I was a sales rep, did well, which actually led me to meeting my wife and just kind of getting settled down and making roots in Nashville. And you know, that was fine, and I actually hopped around to a few different companies there. But in doing that, I really realized that with sales is fine and the construction industry is fine, and those are good jobs. But I had this unsettledness I couldn't wrestle with, where like I really wanted to do work that impacted the world, and I wanted to do work that mattered, and if I had the ability to, I wanted to change America for the better. And so I thought about that, and I said, well, if you want to do that, then you should live and work and do something in DC. And, you know, I have my degree in political science, but I didn't really use it yet. And I had this thought of, well, how in the world can I get to DC, and how can I even begin to do this? And the only thing that popped into my mind was, well, you know, write a letter to your senator. So that's exactly what I did. And so I reached out to Senator Moran, who was also a Fort Hays State grad, and the letter fell on fertile soil. He found grace and favor with me and appointed me to a position working for the United States Senate Sergeant at Arms, which is the governing body that actually manages the Senate, or it manages and helps the Senate function as a unit. And it was an amazing opportunity. So me and my wife packed up and we moved to DC. And it's been a whirlwind of a journey ever since. So I worked with him in that position for about 9 months. And so it was an unbelievable experience. I mean, you get to see the senators on and off the Senate floor. You get to see how they interact with each other outside of just the stereotypical politics that you see on C-SPAN and television. You know, and one thing that I thought was hysterical is that you'd have these senators on the Senate floor giving extremely partisan speeches, whether it's to the right or the left, you know, frequently frustrated with a senator across the aisle. And then as soon as they walk off the floor, you know, they just shake hands, chat it up, talk about grandkids and life and everything else that's going on, just like they were best friends. And I just find that to be really humorous and that's the side of the things that you don't see just based on what's on, you know, CNN and Fox and everything else. But that in turn led to my position at USTR. So my current boss, who is Ambassador C.J.Mahoney, who's actually from Russell, Kansas. So it's a small world. He's the deputy trade representative at USTR. So he is a deputy cabinet member under Ambassador Lighthizer. And he actually interned for Senator Moran on his first House campaign in 1996. And so they knew each other. And so in a conversation that I was not aware of or even knew was happening, Senator Moran recommended that CJ look at me and offer me a job. And next thing you know, here I am, and I've been at USTR since late 2018.
So before we talk about, and I do want to learn more about what you do at USTR and how that office functions, but But before that, I want to step back to your Sergeant at Arms office position.
Yeah, of course.
One of the things that you mentioned in the information that you submitted was that you helped plan the funeral for John McCain.
I did.
Imagine that would have been a huge undertaking. And so can you tell us what is involved with something that?
Yeah, I mean, it's a logistical nightmare, right? Because Senator McCain is a fantastic man and has an incredible legacy. And so when a predominant figure, mainly either a president or like we just saw here a few days ago with Ruth Bader Ginsburg, a Supreme Court justice or a congressman or a senator dies, they have the option to what's called lie in state in the Capitol Rotunda, which is extremely prestigious. But because of that, I mean, a tremendous amount of people want to come and view the body and pay their respects, and not just U.S. citizens, but there's a ton of foreign officials which have like their own security details, their own personal, their own like motorcades and everything else, and you have presidents and foreign leaders and all this stuff. And so just aside from holding the memorial service, the logistics that are there, you also have the logistics of everyone coming in and coming out and making sure that people are allowed access to the Capitol, because the Capitol in and of itself is fairly restricted for where you can go and what you can do. And there's just managing security clearances and a whole bunch of things. So it is a logistical nightmare, but it's a delicate dance when done properly. No one even knows it's happening. And the service is just seamless, which is, what we shoot for and what I think was accomplished. And yeah.
Well, and I just recall that with his, it seems like he was in several places, right?
Oh, he was completely. Yeah. I mean, they had him, they had 4 or 5 different services for him in his home state and then here. And yeah.
Right. So it's even more logistics and more complications, I would
imagine. Yeah. No, completely.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. So tell us, if you would please, for those of us who are unfamiliar with the U.S. Trade Representative Office, what is it that office does? And, I guess what department would that fall under, just, in the hierarchy?
Yeah, so USTR falls under the executive branch. So by in turn, I work for the administration. And so what USTR does, it's a very small agency compared to everything else. We are the agency that is responsible for developing, negotiating, and enforcing trade agreements all across the globe. So as an agency, we're only like just under 300 employees, whereas like the Department of Commerce, the Department of Agriculture, the Department of Transportation, all these agencies you're very familiar with are anywhere from 40,000 to 100,000 employees. So we are very small, and because of that, we're very agile. Everyone works extremely hard. I work with arguably what I would say is some of the best, most dedicated career civil servants on the face of the planet. And because we are small and nimble, we're able to do things in a very short period of time where most other agencies are not able to. Or if we can move faster and potentially more efficiently is a good way to say it, which is what you can see in the trade agreements that we've been able to accomplish thus far in this administration. And there's everything with USMCA to China to Korea to Japan, and there's like 5 or 6 other ones that we're currently working on right now. So yeah, that's what we do.
So tell us about some of the agreements that you've been a part of, what part you've played, and I don't know, I would imagine that sometimes language barriers could be an issue with those kinds of things when you're dealing.
Yeah, they can. They can be. However, we have the privilege that the majority of foreign governments, when they negotiate with us, speak English, or at least they have their negotiating teams will almost always speak English. But as a courtesy, we also try to have, as it relates to Canada, people that speak French, and Mexico, people that speak Spanish. And like I said, we have a very talented team of career civil servants here at USTR that are that, speak virtually every single language on the face of the planet. But so my biggest achievement thus far, I would say, is the renegotiation of NAFTA, or the North American Free Trade Agreement, which was, one of the president's biggest campaign promises, and was able to successfully accomplish this with the new United States-Mexico-Canada agreement, which vastly improves the terms of trade with our two largest trading partners, which are Mexico and Canada, and provides duty-free treatment for more than $1.3 trillion worth of goods and supports over 12 million jobs here in the U.S., a lot of which are in Kansas. So, that makes me feel good. That, a couple years ago, I was in Nashville working on the construction side of things. Now, through, what I would say is divine intervention and a tremendous amount of blessing and favor, I have been able to substantially impact for the better jobs for farmers, workers, and ranchers in Kansas, in America, but in Kansas, and actually help bring economic benefit back to my home state. Has been an unbelievable experience. I mean, Kansas exports $4 billion worth of goods annually to Mexico and Canada. And so this is something that tangibly matters to our cattle producers and to our wheat farmers and our soybean farmers and oil producers, and all of that is covered under USMCA.
So when you're working on these trade deals, you talked about agriculture, for example, with ties to Kansas. Do you have other agencies, participating? Are you gathering information from the USDA to?
Yeah, we do. Yeah, we work with the USDA and the Department of Agriculture and all the time. I mean, we're in direct connection with their senior political leadership as it relates to their secretary and deputy secretary and all that stuff. I mean, Secretary Perdue has been fantastic. And we work a lot with Commerce and a lot with Treasury, a lot with the Department of State. I mean, it's a very interconnected, although they're all different agencies, to get something of this magnitude done. I mean, it takes the entire federal government, and who we work with the most is Congress. So, I mean, through my current job, I mean, I've interacted with, 2/3 of Congress, probably both, House members and senators, as all states have vested interest in commerce and agriculture and petroleum products and all that good stuff.
So do you have any funny stories about any of your time dealing, working with any of these folks? Is there anyone who has a particularly great sense of humor that we wouldn't expect, or anything like that?
Man, funny stories. Well, I mean, I don't know about funny stories. There's been a lot of situations where I found myself that I was, I couldn't believe that I was, where I am doing what I'm doing. It's challenging coming from Western Kansas, and I went to Fort Hays State, which is a fantastic university. But here, I mean, the majority of people I work with are Ivy League educated. And so, but to find myself in the same room with these people, working side by side, able to compete on a level playing field, I think that I find that to be funny sometimes, because I mean, I didn't go to Harvard or Yale. I went to Fort Hays, but here I am doing the exact same work that they're doing, competing at the same level that they're doing, working directly for the White House. I mean, I think that's unbelievable, and that makes me chuckle and smile. So there's that.
Well, and clearly you're smarter than them, because look at how much a Harvard education costs.
Oh, correct.
Right.
Fort Hays is not $250,000 to get a degree. So
exactly. Much less debt, I'm going to guess, is what you have, in addition to a level playing field. Yeah.
Adam, can you hear me?
All right. So I do have some questions coming in, so let's get to some of those. Mike Slattery wants to know, about your role as a youth leader in Nashville and how you became involved with that project.
Yeah, okay. So when I was in Nashville, I got connected to a church called Eastgate Creative Christian Fellowship. It's a fantastic, fantastic church. If any of you ever go to Nashville, that's where I would recommend you plug in. But through my time there, I would just see like our youth group there was fantastic, and it was for middle school and high school age teens. And the idea is that we would put on a youth service for them on Friday nights. So to keep that age bracket from going out and doing what so many other people do on Friday nights, we wanted to create a safe environment for them to grow and learn and have fellowship and connect with their friends, but keep them from doing things that normally get teenagers in trouble. So, but I mean, as I saw this happen and go on for a while, I thought, man, that has to take a tremendous amount of effort to put on. So I reached out to the youth pastor that was leading it, and I just said, like, hey, I mean, what you guys are doing here is impressive. I mean, I love the mission behind it. I like the fact that you're ministering to these teens and kind of, and growing their relationship with Christ, and just and mentoring them and helping them to grow into leaders. And I was like, I want to help. If you need help, I want to help. And he goes, of course, like, we would love to have your help. And so I got plugged in and ended up doing it for years, and it was unbelievably rewarding. As you know, I'm far enough removed from my middle school and high school days that I would frequently forget just the struggles and the pressures and the tensions of life and relationships and cliques and frustrations with parents that these teens would encounter. And so, I mean, I think the older I get, the more I think that we get disconnected from the teens and forget about how rough their life can be, or at least they perceive their life to be. And so anyone who can kind of come and swoop them up, put them under the wing and say, like, you know what, like, life will not always be like this. Life is like high school and cliques and people making fun of you or whatever. Like, this is not all life will be and is like at this current time. And people do care about you. These problems are temporary. You will get past them. And just really just encouraging people and watching them grow, when people would have relationships end and they think that their entire world is coming crashing down, just to know that, like, this is not, this is not the end of your life. It will get better, and just being able to encourage these people and challenge them to, grow deeper in their faith and connect with friends. I mean, it was awesome. I really value that time that I had.
Sounds very meaningful. Absolutely.
Yeah, it was.
So, you're a kid from Hayes.
Yes.
How is life different in DC?
Oh my gosh.
The day-to-day stuff. Man,
that is a great question. It's 180 degrees. So I really like Western Kansas. I mean, I love DC. Don't get me wrong. I think this is a fantastic city. It's where I see myself for the foreseeable future. I mean, just with your exposure to politics and people, but then just, I mean, we have the National Mall, the Capitol, the White House. I mean, it's unbelievable. However, I cannot tell you the last time I saw a sunset. They don't exist. You can't see the horizon. When I go back home and I see my parents' house, and you can see for 20 miles in any direction. The sunsets in Hayes are unbelievable. Just the speed of life is way more enjoyable. And it's just like, a generally friendlier place to be the majority of the time. I do miss that. And it makes it a fun place to go back and visit. I don't know where I will ever end up eventually. But for now I'm in DC and I like it. But man, Hayes has got a whole lot of things that pull on my heartstrings as well. So
I think that you speak for lots of other alums that I've spoken with over the years who have had to move somewhere else for their careers and long for a lot of that Hayes America-ness that they miss, for sure. All right, so we have some other questions for you.
Sure, of course.
How were you able to meet the challenge of learning a new skill set and the information necessary to do your current job after leaving Nashville?
Well, a lot of that goes, I would attribute a lot of that just to my education, especially, like I said, competing with Ivy League degrees. I'm not exaggerating. I would say the vast majority of people I work with, 80% or higher, have Ivy League degrees, whether from Harvard or Yale or wherever. And there are a few people that come from, smaller four-year universities that I work with, but they are the definite minority. And so, but I think that speaks deeply to the caliber of education that Fort Hays gives you, and especially, like I said, my professors, Chad Rackaway and Shayla Mills and countless others who instilled critical thinking, who instilled, just because something is given to you doesn't mean you have to take it at face value. You can question it, you can look deeper. They taught me how to do research and just investigate why things are how they are. So that plays a huge part of it, and writing and asking questions, all these things. But then I would also attribute a ton of it to the career civil servants at USTR, which are, those are government bureaucrats who have been at the agency for decades, that are the steady constant that doesn't change when administrations come and go, who have, sometimes 20 plus years of trade experience as it relates to how we deal with trading partners and how we craft policy and how you make deals and laws that last when administrations change. I work with an unbelievable group of people that I am deeply indebted to for taking me under their wing and educating me on trade policy and negotiation styles and all those things.
So to follow along those lines, you had just mentioned that there's a class of civil servants who've been in the department for years and years and years. The question from Nancy Lindbergh here is, if and when the administration changes, is your job secure?
Not so much. So I'm a political appointee. I work directly for the administration. As such, if and when the administration changes, I will be doing something else. So, I think that we have been able, what this current administration has been able to accomplish in 4 years, as it relates to trade, has been absolutely unbelievable. USTR has done more under this administration than the past 5 put together, probably, which speaks a lot to my boss and Ambassador Lighthizer and just their negotiating strategy and their idea of saying, out of questioning, just because things have always been done this way, do they still have to be done that way, or can we change it, can we modify it, and can we make it faster? With like the USMCA, we changed, most trade deals take 5, 6, 8 years sometimes to accomplish. TPP, which is the Trans-Pacific Partnership, which was the trade deal that was being worked on before this administration came into play, was being negotiated for 8 years and still wasn't done. Now, through the administration changing, we've come in and 6 new agreements have been signed. It's incredible. But yes, I will be potentially looking for work shortly. Hopefully not, but anything is possible.
Well, so there has to be a whole group of folks who are in that situation every 4 years, right?
Yeah, there are. So when it comes to a normal federal agency, you have the top leadership is always political, which means it's appointed and put in place by the president at that time, which is really good. So you have, but that's just like the top upper echelons. So like your secretaries, your undersecretaries, deputy secretaries, assistant secretaries, all that is political. Everything underneath that is career staff that doesn't change. And I mean, and the reason you want that is because if a new administration comes in, you don't want all the expertise that understands how we negotiate with these people and everything we've just done, and like the nooks and crannies and skeletons and clauses from different agreements and things and deals that were made. You don't want all that to go out the window when a new administration comes in and then no one has any idea what's going on. So you have the steady base of the career civil servants, which kind of hold these agencies anchored to the ground. And have all the expertise, which is extremely invaluable. But then you have this political kind of hat that gets put on from these appointed leaders, which come in and they are basically the driving force that says, this is what the administration wants to get done. We have a very short amount of time to get it done. So like, what do we have to do to make X, Y, Z happen? And they are kind of the driving force that is pushing those career civil servants and the whole negotiating teams to accomplish whatever the goal is in that set amount of time. So they're kind of like the pace setters in a marathon who set the pace, set the tone, and then also question when like career staff says, we can't do that because we've never done it this way. Well, they say, well, but why? And, you know, if there's not a law, can we create a law, or can we work within the confines of a law and just do it a way that's never been done before? And they bring in the new creative thinking that might not be there at that time.
So at some point, whether it's, you know, in a few months or, you know, 4+ years, you know, we will have the end of the Trump administration. So how does that, what is the typical path for someone like you who's been a political appointee, you know, especially if someone from a different party comes in to take?
Sure.
You know.
Well, on that, whether it's in a few months or in 4 years and a few months, I mean, come January 20th of whatever year, you resign.
Right.
And essentially, you know, 10,000 people or more all turn in letters of resignation and off to bigger and better things. So, but I mean, it's DC. DC is set up to do this. I mean, they churn. I mean, DC churns a lot. It's a very transient city, just because it's set up for, you know, administration changes and things like this. But I mean, the skill set that I've got from Fort Hays, and then all the knowledge that I've been able to learn through my current job and my experiences that I've had, I have no doubt that, you know, I will be completely fine. So there's plenty of things here for me to do if and when the administration changes.
Well, I guess I was just curious in terms of, there has to be some sort of, you know, standardized, you know, or what people typically.
Yeah, I mean there is. I mean, everything. I mean,
they go back home, if you know.
Yeah.
And maybe not.
No, I mean there definitely is. There's a whole process for it. I mean, all technology gets taken, all computers get wiped, everything gets archived, and then the next administration just starts fresh.
Right. Okay. So Tammy chatted a question. She's wondering what advice you would have for collegiate students who seek employment within the political world of DC.
Sure. Well, especially if you're seeking to be connected in the political world here in DC, there's a few things people should be aware of. A, the city is unbelievably expensive to just live and work here. But it's also very much so about who you know and the connections that you have. So, I mean, even in Kansas right now, I mean, we have, between our House members and our senators, it's not super difficult to get connected to one of their campaigns to work on their staff. And I mean, we have people from both sides. I mean, so Republican and Democrats alike. I mean, we have both of them represented here in Kansas. I mean, you know, you have Governor Kelly, and, you know, who kind of represents that side. So, I mean, you should just get connected. And I am a firm believer that anyone who has a position of power, like they do, to have a eager student who wants to get connected, that reaches out and say, I want to help my government, like they will find a place for you. I don't think I am one of the lucky few who just happened to, upon a miracle, to get here. I think there was some blessed things that, you know, made the transition easier. But from how I know, or from the relationships that I've built with the members that I know, they are always looking for young, educated professionals that want to help, that want to make a difference, that want to get their foot in the door. And like, even if they don't have a place on their staff for you immediately, like they will help you find someplace. Because like you pointed out, DC is always changing, Congress is always changing, there's always turnover, and you can get connected.
So you mentioned Governor Kelly. How often do you work with state level folks?
So through the USMCA negotiations, I mean, we did a lot. However, just the nature of what we do at USTR, it is a lot more focused on federal governments. I mean, I interact a ton with foreign governments, whether it be Mexico, Canada, Brazil, Peru, Argentina, Chile. I mean, we're on the phone with these people all the times. And then more so than even just local governments, and I interact a ton with just CEOs of Fortune 100 companies all the time, because trade policy directly impacts what they do with like Facebook, Google, Amazon, Netflix, all these companies where, you know, countries all over the world are trying to set up digital barriers and kind of impede their ability to do business, which, I mean, all of these are all American companies. And we're seeing tactics from countries all over the world trying to interfere with their ability to conduct business like they have in the past, whether it's setting up barriers and taxes and other things. And so we ended up working a lot more with CEOs and like the government arms of those companies, and then federal governments more than state governments. But I mean, we do a little, but not as much as you might think.
Well, I have a surprise for you. We have someone on this call who is kind of undercover, I think. This is a message I just got. It says, "Hi, Aaron. Shayla here on DH Hamelin Zoom.
Oh my gosh.
Are you interested in becoming one of those career civil servants?"
Yeah. Shayla, I presume as in Dr. Mills?
Yes.
Oh, fantastic. I would, so yes, I am definitely not opposed to it. I have a tremendous amount of respect for everything that they do. That is definitely a career path that I would consider. I think, you know, our career staff they are more unpartisan. So, I mean, they serve whatever administration's in power, and there are some challenges, you know, with that, as, you know, sometimes heads butt between what the politicals want to do versus what the careers want to do. The specific job that I have, working for my boss, is bridging those gaps and really trying to make the flow of information smooth, and making sure that everything can still be accomplished and no one's feelings get hurt too much, which I really enjoy. I enjoy, you know, bridging those gaps, and more times than not, their ideologies are more aligned than what come across, and so I kind of help mend that. But yeah, no, I would have a deep desire to become part of the bureaucracy that keeps, you know, trade policy or even at other agencies moving forward.
So I have another shout out.
Yeah.
I have another shout out for you from this one from Facebook, because of course we're on Facebook Live too. This says, "We are big Aaron Bernasconi fans back in Nashville at Eastgate Creative Christian Fellowship."
Oh my gosh.
By Laura Harris Smith.
Aw, well, thank you. She's one of the senior pastors there that I worked very, very closely with, and I admire both her and the other senior pastor, Chris Smith, which is her husband. I admire them very much, and I would encourage anyone, if you ever make it to Nashville and you need a church, please please go see them because they are wonderful, wonderful people, and it's a great body of believers.
Well, and we'll have to connect you with Dan Weller, who was on this morning, because he spends a lot of time in Nashville as a musician with Florida Georgia Line. So
yeah, he's usually at Florida Georgia Line. Yeah.
Yeah, so we'll have to figure out how to connect all of that together somehow. All right, so I have several comments and questions here from Harry Watts. Harry, for those of you who don't know, was a longtime employee at Kansas Farm Bureau in Manhattan, where he worked on legislative affairs issues and is a past award recipient as well. So his first comment was, we need to get you back on campus post-COVID, of course, and give you the opportunity to speak to students on campus, specifically ag students, to talk about your trade experiences.
Sure.
Then, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
And then the question is, are you involved with Kansas folks that are employed in federal jobs? I always enjoyed meeting with that group and helped bring Kansas back to their lives when they were living in DC.
Yeah, so first off, I'm more than happy, would be delighted to come back and speak if the university would have me in whatever capacity that they would have me. I think that's a huge, huge honor. And you guys just let me know the time and the place and I'll be there. But yes, I work with, surprisingly, Kansas is extremely well represented in DC. Even at USTR, so the agency I work for, my boss, who's a deputy cabinet member, is from Russell. Greg Dowd, who's our chief agricultural negotiator. So he deals with anything and everything ag-related as it relates to trade all over the globe. He's from Mankato, Kansas. Joe Barloon, who's also a senior level political official at USTR. He's our general counsel, so he's in charge of the entire team of our entire legal team and all of our lawyers who make sure that nothing we do crosses the boundaries or is unlawful in any way. He's from Shawnee Mission. And so, and even at the staff level, there's 3 or 4 other guys I work with from Kansas. It's really kind of surprising as I've, gotten to know people, how many people are from Kansas. And I think it's just I don't think that's a coincidence. I think that Kansas just in and of itself instills a tremendous, just work ethic and, don't take no for an answer, and you just have to find a solution and get things done. That whole mentality is very different from, I think, the rest of America. When I first came here, I was really expecting to find a ton of people from New York and New Jersey and Boston, but for the agency that I work at, and then just in the executive branch as a whole, I would say that that's not the case. There's a ton of people from just the middle of America, from small towns that have now found themselves here, which are in similar situations to where I am. Came from, a small town in Ohio or Illinois or Missouri or wherever, and are now working here, which is very much so different than what I expected to see when I came over.
So I have a fun question for you here.
Yeah.
What's your favorite memory of your time here at Fort Hays?
Oh my gosh. Favorite memory? I would say a lot of those go back to just my fraternity. So, I love my fraternity brothers. They're some of my best friends even to this day. And just some of the events that we got to do on campus, just all the, Greek week every year. And just, we did a ton of philanthropy stuff when we were there, which was awesome. And I remember we did walk a mile on her shoes. That was absolutely ridiculous. I forget exactly what it was, but it was a philanthropic event, but we actually all the fraternity guys put on high-heeled shoes and we walked a mile, which is unbelievably difficult. So props to all you ladies who do this day in and day out. I remember there was another event that we did. My memory is a little bit fuzzy on this as time has gone by, but where we stayed up all through the night, what were we doing? It was I think it was a Greek event put on by all of Greek life. We stayed up all through the night, like I think it was like writing letters and some other things. There was like a big banquet, but just kind of collecting and donating money.
Was it for St. Jude, maybe?
I think so. Yeah. I think that's what it was.
Right, yeah.
Yeah. And then, I mean, homecoming was always a blast. The bonfire. I mean, all that stuff there's maybe too many to just pick one. Yeah, I fondly remember all those as wonderful experiences. So.
We have another Facebook question for you. Can you talk to us about your work-life balance in your role, or generally, roles in DC? Is there such a thing?
Yeah, so as I said, USTR is a small agency, and because of that, I feel like everyone that works here works 3 times as hard as most people I know. With COVID, it's been a little bit more relaxed, and there's been some teleworking and stuff, which is nice. But for the majority of my time here, I mean, it's been a little difficult. So I mean, I work a lot. The majority of people I work with are lawyers or were lawyers or lawyers that have come from very prestigious practices, who are used to working, 14, 15, 16-hour days, and that's just life, and that's what you do. And so a lot of that mentality comes over, so it can be a bit of a rude awakening. The majority of days, if I'm out of the office by like 7:30, it's a good day. And that's going in, before 8. So days can be long. Thankfully, I have an unbelievable wife who is full of grace and understanding, and she appreciates the work that I do. And so she has always challenged me to just, this isn't forever. This is a short time that you're here, and your ability to make an impact is time limited. So do what you can and make as big of a splash as you can. And she's willing to let me do that. So I'm very, very thankful to her for being as understanding as she is. But it can be difficult. But when I look back at the things that I've been able to accomplish in my short amount of time here, it definitely makes it worthwhile. I don't know that I would do what I'm doing now if I was just working at a law firm or something else. I wouldn't work this hard if I was just working this hard for the money, to put it that way. When you know that the work that you're doing is actually making an impact, and you are changing the lives of Kansans and Americans, and like directly impacting the lives of millions of people, it makes it easier to swallow the late nights. I mean, there's been days I've been at the office till 2 a.m. or more.
So have you taught that little one of yours, the fight song or the alma mater or anything yet?
I have not. She actually has a little tiny stuffed FHSU tiger that my parents got for her that she really likes. And I think my mom bought her an FHSU future alumni onesie and some other things. No, I think the only thing she knows is like Baby Shark and a few other things. But I'll work on the the Fort Hays State fight song.
Awesome. So we have a couple more questions, and we're closing in on an hour, so we definitely want to be respectful of everyone's time. So let's get to these couple last questions. Chelsea Ladd, whom you may know through your work with Senator Moran, she wants to know, what are some life experience or lessons learned as a student during your time at Fort Hays State that have helped you through some of your challenging times in your position?
I think so. A good one would be just because you believe something to be true doesn't always mean it is. In Fort Hays, especially through some of my senior political level classes at Fort Hays State, with Dr. Mills and Dr. Rackaway, really taught you to challenge, why do you believe what you believe, and is there you know, and how to also look at the other side of the argument, which I think is extremely valuable here in DC, where people are, unfortunately, a lot of people are defined by their political party. And so part of what I think has been invaluable is knowing that, like, just because I disagree with you, like, I still love to, like, sit down, have a conversation, understand why you believe what you believe, and just have, like, open and honest discussions about it. And some of my, and that was, I forget the name of the, I forget the exact name of the class now, but Dr. Rackway taught it, and that's exactly what it was. It was like we would study different topics of different political topics, whatever they were. I think it was maybe like my senior campaign management class of why you run campaigns in certain ways and why people have different beliefs. And then we would sit down, and it was a small class. It was like 4 or 5 people. And we would just sit down and talk about, like, why do you think this? And why do I think this? And we would challenge each other's beliefs and just really grow from that. So, I mean, I think that was invaluable. And that's the first thing I think of that I thought was super, super valuable, especially here in DC, where things are more divided than they've ever been. So,
well, I was just thinking that sounds like something more people probably need to take that class. So here's our last question, and I'm going to guess you might not be surprised that this is the wrap-up question. With all of this experience that you're gaining in DC, do you have any political aspirations of your own? Will we be seeing your name on the billboards and the flyers and things?
I mean, I don't know. My wife asks me this all the time. I really don't know. I don't think so. I don't know that I would to hold an elected office at the DC level, whether it be a congressman or a senator or a future cabinet member or something like that. I don't know that I have a driving aspiration to pursue that. However, the people that I have seen be most effective in their jobs, especially from, like, the political leadership that I work with, they didn't either. They were just really good at one thing or another, and people saw the leadership that was in them, the educational background that they had, their ability to influence people, and they said, that's the person, that's what I want. And they went out and found them, and they tapped them to do the current job that they're doing, when it may have never even been a thought on their radar. So if something like that were to happen, I would definitely not be opposed to it. However, like, you know, I don't know that you're going to see my name on the ballot in 2024. So.
Well, we will certainly be on the lookout, that is for sure. And with that, I want to thank you for joining us, Aaron, and I want to send a couple thanks to our alumni staff. Of course, we heard from Tammy Welbrock at the top here, but the rest of the staff in the office who work so hard to put all these events on, as well as our friends from the Fort Hays State Foundation who have helped to promote these events for us as well and help throughout this week. Thank you, Shayla, for joining us undercover.
Yeah.
That was great.
Thank you, Dr. Mills.
And I want to remind everyone that this is the 4th of 7 of these talks that we're going to do. Tomorrow, we're going to hear from Ashley Adirante at noon. She is our Nida Landrum Award recipient. Doug Hurt is an Alumni Achievement Award recipient. We'll hear from him at 3. And then Lynn Fenwick, who I believe is on this call, as a listening in on this call, will be our final recipient that we'll hear from. That will be Thursday at noon. Thursday evening at 7, we will have the Facebook live stream of the awards celebration, where you'll get to see Aaron's bright and shining face again as he actually receives the Young Alumni Award. So thank you all for being here. It's been a pleasure to get to know you a little bit, Aaron, and we will see you for sure on Thursday night.
Thank you, Charlene. It's been a pleasure to be here, and I'm deeply blessed that you guys considered me for this, and that I was lucky enough to win, so thank you.